Hello and welcome to this review of the DAGGOK'S STABLADZ rival deck and adjoining fighter cards. The making of this video got slightly pushed back because I wanted to make a 2023 retrospect video and also in the same video talking about the future of the channel, which actually includes me splitting up into two separate channels for the two universes I kind of work with here, Middle-earth and the Mortal Realms basically. But enough of that, you can go and watch that video if you so desire. It's only 5 minutes, but it might be worth the watch, I guess. But let's move on with the STABLADZ. So first up we need to check the plot card, which includes schemes. And you have to show then the plot card in the reveal your warband step and yeah, yada yada. So schemes are gambits with the additional rule. You can only play schemes in your power step and you play them face down. A face down scheme is not in your hand, has no effect and it's not persisting. Turn your face down schemes face up at the start of your next turn. At this point the scheme's text explains what effect the scheme has. Each scheme persists until you meet the condition described on the card. When you do so, put the scheme under this card. A scheme under this card has no effect, but some cards count the number of schemes under this card. After your power step, you can return any persisting schemes to your hand. So it's a very interesting dynamic. You can kind of score off of these schemes with your objectives. So it's a bit like the Loon Court. I have taken a look at the cards obviously, and I do think the schemes are on the weak side of things, let's say. So you can decide to play as heavily you want into them. Well, given the format. If you play Rivals, you have to use all of them, obviously. But if you play Championship, you might not want to go the route where you kind of score off of them. Then you might just pick one or two of the stronger ones and yeah, just fill out the blanks with stronger universal cards. And in a Nemesis format you will probably lean slightly heavier into it and so on and so forth. So that's it about the plot card. And as always we will start with looking at the fighter cards for this warband. And first up we have DAGGOK'. He's a hunter, he has 3 move, 1 shield, 4 wounds. And he has the very standard kind of leader profile with 2 range, 2 hammers, 2 damage, which we've seen a lot of. He has a couple of reactions and stuff that we will go over later. He inspires to 5 wounds though, and his bone steer goes to 3 hammers, so that's very reliable. And then we'll look at the other stuff here on the card. He inspires when he deals damage to a second or subsequent fighter in the same phase. That seems kind of hard for a non-range 3+ fighter, but let's see. He has the second attack option, which is named Cruel Skewer. It's 2 range, a single fury and a single damage, and the Cruel Cunning keyword, which means that he has a reaction called Cruel Cunning. After another friendly fighter's move action, this fighter makes this attack action, targeting an enemy fighter adjacent to this fighter. This attack action cannot be modified, so that means it can't increase in dice, it can't increase in damage. It inspires to 1 hammer, so it's like a weaker, pretty much weaker version of the Snarlfang's reaction, which starts at 1 hammer and then goes to 2 swords. Yes, you can still increase it with support, especially from the Howler we will go over later, but it's still kind of weak and it won't trigger that much. It's range 2, so that kind of helps. And there are no infection like free moves in this deck, which will just make this kind of hard. Maybe that's a balanced thing, because there are like free moves in some of the rival decks, and maybe they thought that including free moves in the actual in-faction rival deck would make them too strong in the Nemesis format. I'm not really sure. I don't think it would have made them too strong, because it's still just 1 damage, and he still has to deal damage 2 times to inspire. So 5 wounds is obviously nice, but the single shield is not all that great. And it can kind of be a curse actually to be 5 wounds. Those 2 glories is probably personally just preferred to be 4 wounds. So let's move on. Herc the Howler is also a hunter. His 3 moves, same as the leader, 1 shield and 4 life. He has the Shore Hacker, 1 range, 2 hammers, 2 damage. Inspires to 4 move, but otherwise stays the same defensively, but goes to 3 hammers, 2 hammers, no other keywords on the attack. So that's a pretty good attack. But he inspires when the friendly fighter this fighter is supporting makes a successful attack action. So it's like a weaker version of the Cunning Crew, because they all inspire when they are supported or supports, and they don't even need to succeed. So just straight off the bat, they already seem weaker than the Cunning Crew. He has the reaction Roar of Kragnos, so Kragnos being the god of destruction, if you are familiar with the Age of Sigma lore. It means that after this fighter's activation, if this fighter did not make a super action, give this fighter 1 war counter. While this fighter has 1 or more war counters, this fighter supports other friendly fights within 2 hexes. Clear this fighter's war counters at the end of the phase. I think it looks a bit weak. I mean, I don't really see why it would be a problem for him to charge and do the reaction. I don't think it would break the warband in any sort of way. He could basically do a move, he could do a guard, he could do an attack where he stands. He can do like the stun action, I guess, or any like fighter card specific actions given to him from an upgrade. But I mean, if he charges, he's basically done for the round, I don't think. So take a look at Torka from the Cunning Crew. He has a built-in support in attacks. I mean, just innate. He doesn't need to do anything to get there, and he doesn't need to carry around a huge sousaphone. That's actually the name of such a large brass instrument in like a wind orchestra. But I'm not getting nerdy now. And the same with Amos for the Hexbane's Hunters. I just think that he could just have gotten that support. If the counter he got from doing this was as strong as like a reroll in attacks, like the Grashrax have, or a reroll from an Aether Quartz counter, or the Skaith's Horn counter, I guess something stronger, this would actually be worth doing. But as it's now, it's not really good. Let's move on. I mean, attack-wise, he's a pretty decent fighter. I mean, could be a leader basically with 1 shield, 4 wounds, and 3 hammers, 2 damage. It's pretty decent, right? So let's move on. Next up, we have STABLADZ. He's 3 move, 1 shield, 4 wounds. Inspires to 4 move, otherwise stays the same. He has the Wicked Hacka's attack action, 1 range, 3 swords, 1 damage with Grievous, and inspires to 2 damage without Grievous, just like Hexbane, basically. So just a more reliable damage output. I mean, 3 swords is okay, but it's not amazing. I mean, 4 fighters. I mean, if we compare it to something strong, I guess, like the Vamps, they all do 2 damage uninspired. I don't really see why we should have a fellow straggling behind like Mad Maegrim. He has the following inspired condition. An enemy fighter with 1 or more wound counters is dealt damage that takes them out of action. I guess it's better than the leader. Gracktahuk. He is a brawler. He has a pretty weak baseline attack with 2 range, 2 swords, 2 damage with the snag keyword. He inspires when he makes that snag reaction, and it reads as follows. Use this during this fighter's attack action after the out of action check. So a fighter does not need to be taken out of action for this reaction to happen. It's just in that step of the reaction chain. It pushed the target 1 hex, and then the combat sequence ends. Yeah, could push someone away or closer, depending on the situation in the match. That's pretty neat. And I mean, it's a push that's not a drive back, so a fighter on guard can still be pushed. That's also really nice. It's similar to like the Bow of Desire that Hadzu has, and what else? I mean, there are other fighters that has a similar thing, I guess. He has the Bite of Flail uninspired, and that goes from 2 swords to 2 damage to 2 hammers to damage with that snag. And then he gets a scything attack as well with 1 range, 2 swords, 2 damage, which is just pretty pointless. It's basically as weak as, like, I can't remember the frontline fighter for the Galangan, right? Ilthari's Guardian, yeah. He has like the most pointless scything attack in the game. I think it's like 2 swords, 1 damage or something like that. But the push is nice. So let's move on with the objectives. And I always like to start with the search objectives. And first up we have The Plan Worked. It reads as follows. Score this immediately after you put a second or subsequent scheme under your warband's plot card in the same phase. So you need to put... It's not that crappy, I guess. I mean, it depends on the format, basically. In Rivals, you are going to have so many schemes in the deck that it's probably going to be an auto score. But when you play more competitive formats, You probably can't afford to take too many schemes because they are pretty weak, and then you might not also take this card, I guess. But it's okay. Then we have Deceiving Destiny, which reads, search hybrid, scores immediately after an enemy fighter's attack action that targeted a friendly leader if that leader is surviving. That seems really random and beyond your control. Or that had a dice characteristic of 3 or more and failed. We had a similar card back in, I think it was Shadespire Light. So that's pretty nice. I mean, most fights have better defense now than they did back then. So, I mean, maybe the odds of surviving, or defending, I should say, a 3 dice attack were lesser then than it is now. It's pretty commonplace with 3 dice attacks, and they were a bit more rare back then. So I think that's pretty decent, like backup plan to the first part. So that's pretty decent, I think. Then we have Deceptively Brutal, which reads, scores immediately after your warband's 4th or successive attack action in the same phase. I think that's pretty solid, actually. And that's really strong. I think pulling off 4 attacks in a round with a 4-man warband should be very doable. Especially if you can get in some out-of-sequence or reactional attacks and stuff like that. So that's really good. I like that. Then we have Deceptively Cunning, scores immediately after your warband's 3rd or successive reaction in the same phase. So reactions. So what reactions do we have on the fighter cards? We have that the leader's reaction, which seems pretty unreliable, I guess. We have the snag reaction with a pushback, which is only usable on a successful attack because there is no out of action check on an unsuccessful attack. Jax does not have any. Herc has obviously a very reliable reaction. 3 reactions in round. I mean, we have had similar cards for other warbands with only 2 reactions. A fair amount of time, I would say. I mean, like the Briarthorns have it. I think like Sandai's Truth Seekers. I mean, probably many warbands have it. I still think it's pretty decent. I think it's a bit unfair that they have to do 3 when other warbands just have to do 2. I'm not sure about that, why they decided to go for 3. Then we have Cruel Tactics. Score this immediately after friendly fight's attack action if 2 more friendly fighters supported that attack action, or that was your warband's 3rd or subsequent supported attack in the same phase. Okay, so you don't need to succeed, which is a good thing. 2 supporting fighters is a bit rough, I guess, in a 4-man warband. There are stuff to increase that. I mean, Herc can be a support from 2 range, and if you have another one next to it, you can certainly kind of work towards it. I guess if you go with like the, what's it called? The Beastbound Assault has a lot of like, you have support from another beast or whatever fighter from 2 hexes away and stuff like that. You could definitely work towards it. It's no auto score, and the second was the 3rd subsequent supported in the same phase. It's okay, but I still feel like, why are they getting so much harder objectives than recent warbands have gotten? I'm not sure here. Cruelest of them all. Such hybrid scores immediately after a friendly leader's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action. Very random. Or a friendly fighter's attack action that results in a critical hit takes an enemy fighter out of action. I don't really like those cards that you can't really... that's a card that can just be a brick for you. I mean, we have like Canaan's Reapers. They have a card that you just need to do a critical hit. And I mean, Thunderix have a similar card. Headshot or whatever it's called. So why do they actually need to crit and kill someone? So I mean, the kind of theme here continues with hard cards, I think. But it's like a built-in kill someone with a leader. It's called Savage Exemplar. So you can score it in 2 ways, obviously. I mean, the leader is a decent fighter, so it's okay. It's not amazing. So let's move on to the end phase cards then. First up we have Aspiring Killaboss. Dual scores in end phase if there is a surviving friendly leader and that leader is inspired. It's 1 glory. I don't really like these kinds of cards. They're pretty boring, and I mean, the leader has a pretty hard inspire mechanic. So I would say it's pretty weak. Next up we have Think Steel Triumph. Scores in end phase if 1 or more schemes are under your warband's plot card. When you score this objective card, if you have 4 or more schemes under your warband's plot card, gain 2 additional glory points. So either you score 1 or you score 3. That's very interesting. I don't think we've seen that before. It's pretty versatile, I guess. I mean, if you're banking on scoring the card full on, you probably need to take a lot of schemes. But if you're kind of playing more lightly with the schemes in a a more competitive format than Rivals. Maybe going for the one door is okay, I guess. Still don't think it's amazing. Then we have Cunning Collector, scores an defense if one or more enemy leaders are out of action. Also pretty boring card, right? And very random. And you kind of have to invest a lot if you want to make sure that the enemy leader is dead. I mean, if you're playing a warband that raises fighter, they will do everything in their power to protect him behind block, Texas, and defensive upgrades and stuff. So I really don't like that part. Then we have Legendary Cruelty, scores an end phase if each enemy fighter has one or more wound counters and or is out of action. That's pretty weak as well. That's pretty weak and very matchup dependent. I mean, if you're meeting a warband that raises fighter or just has a lot of fighters, wounding or killing all of them, that's gonna be really hard. I mean, you need a lot of like small reliable damage to score this card, and even if you have that, I mean, as long as they are raising fighters or just have enough fighters to deny you, that's not gonna be a good card. Then we have Legendary Cunning, scores an defense if 3 or more schemes are under your warband's plot card. That's the same as I talked before. Like, you need to kind of really invest in the schemes if you want to score this card. So if you're not investing heavily into the schemes, I wouldn't take this card. But if you're playing heavily into this theme, this is actually a pretty reliable card. So in Rivals, it's pretty decent. Then we have Storage Stabbing. Dual, score this in an end phase if the number of friendly fighters out of action is lower than the round number. So we have 4 fighters and the number of enemy fighters out of action is equal to or greater than the round number. 2 glory. Oh, that's pretty rough that you need to do both of them at the same time. I mean, we direly need our 2 glory end phases, but this is not reliable. I think just one of them would have been enough. Because, I mean, we have similar cards that out of action fighters equal to or lower than the round number, and then nothing more on the card. And then here we need to have lower than and something more. I don't really understand the design here. Let's move over to the Gambits. We have first up here Bust Their Ears. It's a scheme card. Play this only as described on its plot card. In the turn in which this card is turned face up, friendly fighters supported by Herc are considered to have one additional supporting fighters. Conditions: a friendly fighter makes an attack action supported by Herc. It's very specific, obviously, and it's bound to Herc as well, so you can salvage it. It's restricted to Herc, which is a good thing, but otherwise, yeah, it helps score us that search card where we need to have 2 supporting fighters, but it also very much specifies in how we achieve that one. Yeah, not overly impressed, I guess. Let's move on. Gutton. It's also a scheme card. Plays only as described on its plot card. In the turn in which this card is turned face up, friendly fighters range 1 and range 2 attack actions have Grievous 1. Condition: a friendly fighter's range 1 or range 2 attack actions take an enemy fighter out of action. It's pretty useful, I guess. I mean, the damage output with this warband isn't amazing, especially that 1 damage dude, and Grievous does stack, so that's pretty good. And it's good that it's both for range 1 and 2. Now we have Cruel Teamwork. Choose 2 friendly fighters, push each chosen fighter 1 hex. That's a strong card. That's just given to take that card. It's always going to be good, and it doesn't like specify that you need to push in a specific way, that they need to end up close to each other or anything closer to enemy fighters or whatever. It's just a very good card. Next up we have Cunning Trap. Reaction: play this after an enemy fighter's move action that ends adjacent to 1 or more friendly fighters. Roll a magic dice and roll of lightning, so 50-50, or channel, I should say. Deal 1 damage to that fighter. 50-50 to damage. I think it's just 1 ping damage for 50%. I think that's rough, and I think I think just this warband seems to get like a very stepmotherly treatment here so far. I'm feeling a bit sad for them. Next up we have Outfinkum. It's a scheme card. Play this only as described on its plot card. In the turn in which this card is turned face up, when an opponent plays a power card, draw 2 power cards. Condition: you draw your second or subsequent card since this card was turned face up, other than by using player action. I mean, your opponent will know that the effect is in play and they might just wait. It still kind of affects them, I guess. I think it's kind of hard to gauge actually, but I think it's interesting for sure. Then we have Russian. Play this only as described. Also scheme card. Play this only as described on its plot card in the turn in which this card is turned face up. +1 move to friendly fighters. The condition friendly fighters move action ends 5 or more hexes from where it started and adjacent to 1 or more enemy fighters. Yeah, it's pretty kind of basic, I guess. We have very many similar like asterism cards and whatnot. Cycle ploys for Nurgle also has +1 move card, I guess. Yeah, I mean they only have 3 move and 4 inspired, so that's probably not bad. But if you want to kind of complete the card, it can be a bit tricky, I guess. Getting 5 hexes away, I think that's also a bit rough, right? They could have just said like do a move of 5 hexes to complete the condition, I guess, because of, yeah, I'm dubious. I think, I mean, for the effect of +1 move, it's useful, but completing the scheme is pretty hard. Or might be at least. Scarum is another scheme. Play this only as described on its plot card in the turn in which this card is turned face up. Each time your warband pushes an enemy fighter, you can push that fighter 1 additional hex. Condition, you push an enemy fighter 2 more hexes. I mean, if you know that you have another push in your hand, I guess it could be really useful and you probably wouldn't play it otherwise. Or if you're kind of sizing your opponent up for an attack with a push guy, it's pretty good. Stacking the odds, pick 1, draw an objective. This is not a scheme card. Pick 1, draw an objective card, then put 1 objective card from your hand on the bottom of your objective deck, or put 2 power cards from your hand on the bottom of your power deck and draw 2 power cards. That's pretty nice. I think both effects could be really useful. Like an extra mini mulligan. That's really nice actually. I like that one. Stolen No What's reaction. Play this after a friendly leader's attack action that takes an enemy fight out of action. Draw 2 power cards. It's restricted to the leader, so you can salvage it. It's very specific, obviously. It is a reaction though, so that's good for that other card that we mentioned earlier, the search card. But you can only use it after you kill someone with a specific fighter. So, I mean, there are probably better reactions to take if you want to score that card. But it helps that you can salvage it, I guess. Then we have Take That Head. Scheme, play this only as described on its plot card. When this card is turned face up, choose an enemy fighter in the turn in which this card turned face up, +1 dice to friendly fighters attack actions that target the chosen fighter. Condition, the chosen enemy fighter is taken out of action. So you could actually get more mileage than 1 attack out of +1 dice here. That's pretty nice. You need to kill that fighter to complete the scheme, which can make the end phases pretty hard. But I mean, the +1 dice is a nice effect. Let's move over to the upgrades and see what they can bring here. Big Bully is restricted to Herc, Yags, or Crag, so everyone except the leader. So you can salvage it if only the leader is alive. It's +1 wound. Pretty boring. It's pretty nice, obviously, to have +1 wound, and it's fairly versatile. It will make basically everyone large here, though. So yeah, that's 2 glory. That's a sad side effect. It's like more useful in 3 wounds warband, obviously. Then we have Death Proof. +1 defense while 1 or more of your warband's schemes are persisting, and it's for anyone. So if you complete the scheme that you're trying to complete, the effect goes away. And then this +1 defense is like a consolation prize for not completing the scheme, I guess. But so it's only really good if you... It's a bit odd, the synergy there, I think. Then we have Extra Cunning. This fighter's attack action have Ensnare. Oh god, I hate this card. We've seen it a couple of times. I hoped we wouldn't see more of these guys, I guess. Ensnare is not really useful. It's just 1 side of the dice. I mean, Cleave isn't even something I would take in any format, basically. And Ensnare is... come on. You can do better. Then we have Extra Scary. Reaction after this fighter's activation in which this fighter made 1 or more attack actions. Stagger 1 adjacent fighters. I'm not really a fan of stagger, I guess. You can take it away, it goes away off the round. If you're not killing an opponent, you're in trouble. Leaving them alive and staggered, I'm sure it's better than leaving them alive and not staggered, but I can't say I think it's okay. It is a reaction though, so if you really need to do that, I guess it's okay. But otherwise, it's pretty bad. Thinking Muscles is for the leader only. Reaction after your pass action. Pick any number of your warband's schemes that are persisting and or in your discard pile. Add those cards to your hand and break this card. So you need to take the pass action with the leader specifically, and then you get to take your schemes back, but then you can't do it anymore. So I think a game of Warhammer Underworlds is played over the course of 12 friendly activations, and to waste basically an activation when you have so few of them to passing, I don't really fancy that at all. There is kind of a new, like a time freeze kind of card, but even if you play into that, it's a very low chance synergy. I don't really like it. Intimidating is -1 dice to minimum of 1 from adjacent enemy fighter attack actions that target this fighter. I hate that it's only adjacent. There's so much during 3, 2, and even 4 now that it's just so easy to get around this card. Why not just give -1 dice? They could have surely needed that. It wouldn't have broken the warband. Come on. Then we have Keen Finka action, discard a power card, then draw 2 power cards. It's an action to do that. I mean, I can see why they have the card, but I mean, it's basically the pass action with a twist. I don't really like it. Cruel Braggart is a reaction card, so it also helps score that card. Cruel Tactics, I guess. After you put a scheme under your warband's plot card, gain 1 glory point and break this card. I mean, an extra glory can be very important. It's just a one-off, but I mean, it's pretty reliable, especially in less built formats. I think it's okay, actually. Then we have Mork's Mangler. Mork being one of the 2 orc gods. This fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions have the following ability, depending on how many schemes are under your warband's plot card. 1, Stagger, 2, Cleave, 3, Grievous 1. I mean, the first effect is Stagger, which I don't really care for, which I've said many times before. Cleave is okay, but to have 3 schemes just to get to Grievous, I mean, we've seen much stronger, like, cumulative cards than this one. Then we have Sneaky Git, which is a reaction card. After this fighter's activation, push this fighter 1 hex. We've seen this many times before. That's a good card. I mean, that's a card that you can take in the championship format as a universal card, basically. So I would be amiss to say that's a bad card. So what is my conclusion then? I just feel, I mean, comparing them to the other Cruel Boys faction is very, I mean, it comes naturally, I guess, and they just feel a lot worse. And I really hope I'm wrong here. But I mean, for me personally, I don't really care for orcs that much. I do actually own a Cruel Boy army for Age of Sigmar. But I'm, in this game, pretty sick of orc warbands, because we've just seen so many of them. Is this like the 6th orc warband, and we've yet to see 3 dwarven warbands? Or yeah, come on, why? I don't think they are aesthetically pleasing to look at it even. Do like the idea of the schemes and all this thing. Maybe it's a bit too complicated, and I think the schemes are just a bit too weak. I think they could definitely be a bit stronger. Objective-wise, I'm not really convinced either. I mean, the end phases that weren't 1 glory, they just seemed really hard. Like, you need to do this thing that's pretty hard, but you also need to do this thing that's really hard. And then you get 2 glories. While we have stuff in, like, the Force of Frost that just tells you 2 fighters are out of action for 2 glory. I mean, come on, compare those 2 things. It doesn't make sense. I mean, fine, you can have this card, but it should definitely be 3 glory then. Or make the conditions easier. That's what I think. So what other, like, rival deck do they work within, say, the Nemesis format? I think the Voidgrif's Thralls are probably decent, given that they are all like 1 shield. I mean, being able to not be pushed back is pretty decent, especially for, like, Herc. If he can stay there being supported in the spot that you want to have him in. And the other guys are also just 1 shield, and Grak is just 1 dodge, so he actually gets a defensive boost. I mean, there are some caveats. You can't do, like, the pass action, I guess, or the like the card-specific action that says that you should discard a card and draw 2 new ones. You can't do that if you Void Cursed, so there are certain cards, but those are not good anyway. I mean, Breaking Slaughter is an aggressive deck. I think he may be the Beastbound Assault, and to get the support of could be decent as well to inspire the guys. But yeah, I am dubious at best. This is like a weak 2 out of 5 for me, this warband so far. But I am, I wouldn't mind being contradicted there after playtesting it, but I don't really like the outlook for this warband, neither aesthetically or mechanically. But hope you enjoyed my salty review anyway. Next up I'm gonna look at the new rival deck, the universal rival deck. So this is Mats again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and to not miss out on future content, ring the bell as well. And if you really liked this video, feel free to click the thanks button just below this video. And if you want to support me even further, you can now become a channel member and claim the title of Critical Focus fan. Until next time, take care, bye.